Good day, dear friends. Welcome to this week's episode of Managing with the Heart, a series that brings iconic leaders into a down-to-earth conversation setting focused on tackling topics on how to build resiliency in businesses, society, and personal as well as family life. Most of you already know the co-host by now, but for the newcomers, I'm privileged to introduce Mr. Kamlesh Patel, affectionately known as Daaji, who is the founder and guide of the Heartfulness movement and a silent change maker, teaching and guiding millions to meditate in the heartfulness way in over 160 countries. And Dr. Ichak Adizes, founder of Adizes Institute, a world-renowned management consultant and author of 26 books translated in 36 languages. He's also a heartfulness meditationer and a trainer. Today, we welcome our special guest, Mr. Shiv Khemka, Vice Chairman of Sun Group, a diversified multi-billion global group, and Chairman of T-Gulf, an education initiative nurturing youth to become ethical and altruistic leaders. Having known Shiv for some years, I can vouch for his passion in the activities of the foundation. He truly is a leader with a heart and hence a perfect guest on this show, Managing with the Heart. A hearty welcome to you, Shiv. And so without further ado, I pass on to Dr. Adizes to please start the session. Thank you.
Well, the subject of youth is absolutely important because this is the next generation and the future. So it's very interesting to know, Mr. Shiv, Mr. Khemka, how you do it and what do you do? I will have a question for you and maybe then we'll all react to that. Have you had a challenge in your profession, in your work? We'll get to the youth next, but in managing the companies, multi-billion dollars companies, I mean, it's a big challenge. But you had a problem that you had to solve it with your heart. You had a conflict between what your brain told you and what your heart told you, and you chose the heart. What was that problem and how did you solve it?
Thank you all. It's a pleasure and honor to be here. Dr. Adizes, the question you ask me is not a question I think that happens once in a while. I think it's a question that actually we address daily. There's often a tug between the heart and the mind, especially in the world of business and the external facing world. And in that world, I think one needs to give due attention to both to try to create balance. One needs to understand the parameters and what the mind is telling us, what makes logical sense from a purely logical point of view. And then I think one needs to bring one's heart to that decision to really make the final decision. Because without heart, I think that decision is like a hollow decision and has no real substance. I'll give an example from my own career. We've had many. This is a daily process, as I said. Every time there's a crisis, one has to make decisions about cutting costs, reducing people, and all these types of difficult decisions in a business. And unfortunately, businesses go through cycles, as you know well. But I'll give you an example. 2008, when everything crashed, we were developing a mine, a big gold mine in Siberia, in eastern Siberia. That mine had a village around it of 1,500 families living there. And we had planned that we would take over this old mine and redevelop it and have it up and running within 3 years or 5 years maximum. So we acquired it in 2007, 2008, everything crashed. And suddenly all our finance dried away. And we had to decide, what do? We have to keep paying the village every day salaries for 1,500 families to keep them alive. And we didn't know when we would raise money again. We finally raised money in 2019. So for 10 years, we kept that village alive, kept paying the salaries of those people because they had no other option. And we had to do what was right. So even though we were losing money every day, every week, we just had to keep that village alive because actually it was more important for us to do our best, even if we had to sell other parts of our assets or whatever we had to do to keep the village alive because they really had no other choice. So I think business has is deeply connected to head and heart decisions. Obviously, we could only do it as far as we could do it. There would have come a point when we would have given up if we weren't able to create the financing needed to support that village. That's an example that I always remember, because it caused me a lot of stress from other parts of our business, saying, how can you keep that alive when other parts of the business are having to make sacrifices for that part of the business? So anyway, as a leader, one has to make these decisions.
Daaji, would you like to react to it, or you have your own example?
No, as Shiv already pointed out, that we operate every moment with the heart, actually. The question of deciding with the heart comes only when you are not all the time with the heart. So I can give you an example where I failed when I did not use my heart. But that is irrelevant. What is most important is that we got to use heart every moment. It is like a person who meditates for half hour every day, and for the rest of 23 and half hours is different person. Then it will not work. So when we say I use my heart, it has to be used all the time, not just during one of the moments. Of course, challenge comes when the decision that we made because of the heart, and because that's your natural tendency. Problems can arise, like Shiv had to put up and tolerate the loss for almost 10 to 11 years, providing salary to a village of 1,500 families. If you have money, yes. If you have resources and other assets that you can liquidate, good. But what do you do when you don't have these? That's the time when you cry and you weep, and there is no solution in sight. Then you have to terminate whatever project you are doing. See, you go to the extreme. So, to me personally, heart is not to be weighed out against the logic. Heart has to be used all the time. That has to become our primary nature. Exceptionally, you can show I did not use the heart, and you see the consequences. Be disastrous.
Here is my take on this. Thank you. When I say yes to somebody else, that I don't feel complete with it, I'm saying yes to him, but I'm saying no to myself. And that's why it doesn't feel comfortable to say no to yourself, but to say yes to somebody else. So the next question is, who is this yes that I want to say to myself? Who is myself? Who am I? I'm not what I think. Because what I think, those thoughts come from television, newspapers, books I read, people that my parents told me this, my wife told me this, my friends told me this, my enemies told me this. My head is full with other people's ideas. It's not all mine. So if I follow the brain, I'm not following myself. Myself is the heart. That's your complete. If you listen to your heart, that's really who you are. But if you listen to the heart to make a decision, like Shiv said about this village for 10 years paying, there is a cost to it. Why? Because there is no commitment without price. People are committed, but they don't want to pay the price for the commitment. And Shiv was willing to pay the price. Too many people, my heart tells me to do that, but I don't want to pay the price. There is a price to a commitment. The moment we say, I'm committed to the heart, you have to say also, I'm committed to pay the price to follow who I am. Because who you are sometimes costs a lot in energy, in money, because you have to live up to the commitment, up to the values you believe in, and not what the head is telling you, money, profit sharing, balance sheet. Living with yourself always costs money. And many people, I find out from my experience, they talk about the commitment until the time comes to write the check. And then they say, I'm committed, but I'm not so sure I'm willing to do that. They're not committed. Living with a heart means we need to pay the price. And that, I think, is what we all have to remember. That's my take. I have another question here I will start with you this time. What should be the goal of a company in your mind? We all talk about, return on investment, earnings per share, did the GNP grow? Did the profitability grow? Is the company growing? Is that the goal? I mean, this is economic theory. The economic theory is we need to profits. We need to return on investment. What is your take? What should be the goal? The moment we talk about management with the heart, is it the same goal? What is the goal of the heart? I know what the goal of the brain is, but what's the goal of the heart?
Once I have fixed the main goal of my life, ultimate goal, what I would expect myself to be when I breathe my last. The final version of Kamlesh when I'm breathing the last. The best that is there, best and presentable to the Lord. The rest of the things that I do in this life is only to arrive at that level. If I do business, it is to support my spiritual life. It is to support my travel expenses. It is to support my family's grooming in the field of spirituality. Because spirituality also costs. You see, you have to travel, visit ashrams, spend some time alone. So whatever earnings that I have, whatever earnings that I had to make, I make in the company of many associates. And if I have the ability of making millions, go ahead. I would not run away from making millions. If I have the ability of making billions, I would do it. But I would always remember the primary goal, that I have to heighten, I have to prepare myself in the best possible way so that I can present myself to Almighty and say, here I am, Lord, I did my best. Other things are on the side, businesses and this and that and families. And this is something that supports my main pursuit.
What is the goal of your pharmaceutical company when you were managing it? Not you personally, the pharmaceutical company.
Well, to make money, definitely, to earn as much as possible. At the same time, create an environment within that organization to create a family. I have always believed, and I have said it so often in this program, that most of our time is spent, the waking hours, 12 hours a day, we spend with the colleagues, associates, business people, partners, employees. Remaining other 12 hours, what do? 8 hours of sleep. So you are left with 4 hours. You spend 1 hour in the bathroom. How many hours do you really spend with your loved ones you call your family? Very little. And unfortunately, in my case, my wife and I stayed almost 6 months a year, maybe sometimes 8 months a year separate. But she used to be in India looking after children. So you can imagine the extent of sacrifice one had to put up with. And but it was all okay. You paid the price, but by paying this price, I had the freedom of pursuing a spiritual life, where family life is also entertained. At the same time, the spiritual pursuit is also fulfilled. In short, I would say it is all these business activities that we do is to support the family to orient themselves in a spiritual way and personally fulfill your life in a spiritual way.
Thank you, Daaji. Shiv, what about you? What's the goal of a company? I mean, you're running a company. What is your goal for the company?
I think for the company, the goal should be to be a productive actor in the world, to fulfill needs of other people that need goods, services. I think that's the purpose of the company, and to create an environment for a family-like atmosphere within the company, for people to work each other, to grow together, to build something together, and to free themselves from economic hardship, and allow them to have freedom. I think for me personally, I couldn't give a more beautiful answer than Daaji has given. But I think for me, personally, I think freedom is very important. A company, at least in my mind, creates some freedom. Of course, it ties you up in all kinds of bondages. But rather than having a job, having a company and having a business, I feel, and maybe it's a mythology, gives me freedom to do the things I want in my life, both in terms of my own spiritual journey and in terms of the journey in this life, externally, to serve, to be able to create things I'd like to create, to be able to live a life that is productive in some way.
Wow, okay. Here is my take on this. And that's my business as a management consultant all over the world. What's the goal? What do you want to do with the company? Since the topic of our webinar is management with the heart, and the heart is love, let me start a little bit up there. I think everything we do in life, I believe, everything we do in life is for love. Even the billionaires, my clients that make money, if you really scratch the surface, why are you making these billions? To buy love. Eventually, they want love. Everybody wants love. And what is love? Integration. There is no love without integration. So the purpose of a company should be integration. Integration of what? Client needs, but not only client needs. Stockholder needs, not only stockholder needs. Community needs, not only community needs. Environmental needs, not only environmental needs. Our value system. Integration of all variables. The problem that we are having today is that companies are not aiming for integration. They're creating disintegration by going only for one client called the stakeholders, the shareholders, the stock market, earnings per share. And what's happening? They're disintegrating the environment, disintegrating society, disintegrating the world. And disintegration equals hate. Love equals integration. So the purpose of a company is to satisfy client needs, but not at the expense of disintegrating the world. That's my take. If you have done a lot with youth, can you tell us a little bit what is it and why is it such a passion of yours, young people? What is it? Well, what happened to you when you were young that you did not get for the others to get it?
Well, when I was young, I grew up in Delhi. I had asthma. So I left India for medical treatment with my brother when I was 11 and my brother was 8. And after that, I became a nomad. So I lived in France for 1 year. Then I went to boarding school in England. Then I went to college in the US. Then I lived in Mexico, Venezuela, Brazil, Argentina, went back to business school. Then I lived in Russia, lived in Ukraine, lived all over the Central Asia, worked in Africa, worked in China.
Are you Jewish? What is this?
And so for me, I've been a nomad. I come from Rajasthan, so we're used to being nomadic on the camels, wandering around. So I think modern day nomad. And I think in that period, I realized a few things that really impacted my thinking. The first was that everywhere on the world, I found that the quality of leadership left something to be desired. Leaders were not deeply ethical people. They were not leading from the heart. They were people that were often very self-serving, selfish, and sort of politics with a small p rather than politics with a big P in terms of service of others. And they weren't altruistic. So I felt there was a big gap a vacuum of leadership on the planet. And I decided that part of the reason to blame for that was our education system. The education system on the planet is so focused on the external world that there's not enough focus on the internal world. And that made me feel that the system was imbalanced and I should do something about it rather than only complaining about it. Because I really complained about it for many years. And then I decided, enough complaining, let me just do something about it, even if it makes no real difference, but still I should at least do something about it. And so I started with, just with my wife and a few of us thinking about what could we do, and imagine if we could help change the education system on the planet in some way to make it more about ethical, altruistic leadership and about leadership, real leadership, which I think is about service, it's about self-knowledge, leading from within, and all these other things. And we've had some great leaders on the planet in the last few thousand years, starting with, Lord Buddha, Jesus Christ, Mahatma Gandhi, Nelson Mandela, Abraham Lincoln, Mother Teresa, etc., etc. There have been many great leaders, but for some reason, their messages have not been transmitted in a way that people have really digested them and created the next generation of quality leadership. And that lack of leadership has led to a world that, as you said, has many aspects that have disintegrated, looking at the climate, looking at the environment as an example, looking at the refugee crisis, looking at inequity, where 8% of the world's population, 8%, all of us included, share 83% of the world's wealth. So I just felt this was not fair, it was not right. And of course, everything is in the hands of the Almighty. But as little ants on this earth, we should do our bit to try and at least do what we feel is right. And so that's how really the idea started to create a foundation focused on youth. Because we felt it has to start when people are young. We have to start with young people to get them to think young about leadership, what it means, about ethics and the importance of ethics in leadership, the importance of risk-taking in leadership, and the importance of altruism in leadership. So LEAD, that's our little mantra for schools: leadership, ethics, altruism, and decisive action. We now reach 3 million children in 14 countries, and our target is to reach 100 million children in the next 3 to 5 years. And it's a curriculum we developed with Harvard University, Graduate School of Education, Columbia Teachers College, a team in India. And we really made it about, if we had called it spiritual education, a lot of schools would not digest it. But by calling it leadership education, it was digested by everyone. And into that, we brought in the concepts of what it means to be really a leader that starts to work with themselves and understand themselves and starts to develop on that journey. So that's what we do. And I spend half my time every day doing that. And I love it. And I'm passionate about young people. And I believe that young people, can be a great source of change on the planet. And it's their world that we will be handing them. And unfortunately, I believe our generation hasn't done a great job so far. So that's really why I'm passionate about it.
Shiv, if you allow me, Shiv, to contribute to what you're saying in a different angle. You're constantly talking about leading from the heart, managing from the heart. What does it really mean in education? What's wrong with education is we teach people to know, not to be. To be. But you don't teach people to be, but teaching them to know what does it mean to be. Because you're still working from the head. What I did as a young guy, I was 17 years old, 16 years old. I organized all the schools of Tel Aviv. I used to, at that time I was living in Israel. I was the chairman of all the high schools of Tel Aviv. To go out and work, do something for other children that are poor. Those that have something, do for those that don't have something. I personally worked in a prison for teenage girls that were prostitutes. I was teaching them folk singing and folk dancing. I opened my heart. It was not here. So teaching them to know about altruism, to know about values, to know, you're still coming from the heart. I'll give you another example. A company in Mexico, my client, they spent a lot of money on advertising to get their thousands of stores. I told them, stop. Let's do something else. All over Mexico, and this is true for India, there's so many places in town that are neglected, full with rubbish, right? Corners of between streets. Let's convince the city to give us the right to clean up that part and make it a playground for children. And then let's our suppliers donate the basketball court and donate a ping pong table and donate and say donated. They get advertising. And our workers from the store donate 2 hours a week, each one of them, to play with the children. You know what happened? It started growing. After 3 years, 1 million children went out one Saturday to clean up the streets of Mexico City. That is called leadership of the heart. Do. Too many people know.
If I may just, I think that's beautiful what you said, Dr. Adizes. Our curriculum is not about teaching anything. There's no classroom lecture. It's all about doing. Everything is about doing, service, supporting, doing things, coming up with ideas. 3 years ago, we organized India's largest music concert, organized by young people, for water, sanitation, hygiene, gender equality, and education. And the children raised $6.3 billion in commitments to build toilets, to serve, to do all kinds of things. It's all about doership. It's not about teaching.
Now. That I think, because too many people talk about love. Talk is cheap. Doing means a price. You have to devote time, you have to devote attention, you have to sacrifice something else, because there is a price to it. The moment you don't pay the price, if you don't pay for it, you don't get it. You have to pay for it to get it. Daaji.
Well, we as an organization, we are doing a lot actually worldwide as far as spirituality is concerned. And now, since last 6 years or so, we have been aggressively pursuing the youth. Aggressive. We go from college to college, and now in this pandemic period, we are having a lot of online programs for the youth. See? We interact a lot. We have free discussions on all these things. As far as doing is concerned, we make them do meditation, that's all. But it's not just that's all, because if you see the reason for environmental pollution, the direct cause is the inner pollution. If this inner pollution is removed and so there is some clarity, then children can behave well. See, ability to give the decision, make the decision on their own accord. So we sensitize their hearts by rightful techniques we give them, primarily meditation, how to do the cleaning, how to remain in touch with your higher self. And for each of these sessions, we have a trainer. See? So we strike all these things at the very root level, see? Sensitizing the heart, make it able to discriminate things from right and wrong. See? If a child doesn't know what is right and what is wrong, then this child is going to fail. We have to sensitize the heart. So that is the beginning part of it. See? Give them enough of courage that yes, doing the right thing pays off in life. So we have, I would say, about more than, God knows, more than 50,000 perhaps, volunteers all across the globe. They give their time. If you put value to it, it can go in billions. So much of the contribution is there at an individual level. None of our people who work are on salary. It has its plus and it has its minus. See, the main thing is working on the heart. See, education will go on. It is required to survive in this world. But how to make use of this education, how to make use of your heart, especially in education, in your professional life, in your business world, in your family life. Heart is the most important thing, and that's what we teach. And we move from one university to another university. University means multiple colleges. In India, each university means 30, 40,000 students. It's a big, big number we are talking, and we can do a magical thing once we catch up with the youth. Biggest challenge, especially in India, we have about 2 million new youth coming up, and they don't have jobs. 2 million a month. By spiritualizing their mindset, by making their minds more matured through thinking and feeling, and that will lead to a state of becoming something, becoming a world citizen. So our approach is at a grassroots level, working with the youth. See,
Beautiful.
I just learned something, and I want to highlight what I learned, like just listening to you. What I was doing and I was believing up to now is not good enough. And I think, Shiv, it could also help you with what you're doing. It's not enough. Doing is important, more than just, talking about it, but not enough. You just went one step deeper for me. You have to clean up yourself first before you can clean up the world. I was trying to clean up the world, but I was not clean myself. So going into meditation as a first step and cleaning yourself is the first step to be able to do something for the world. So this starts from the inside out. Really starting from the inside out is the importance of meditation. You see, if the people meditated, their doing would be cleaner. So I think it should be the first step of whatever we do is to clean up, to meditate. If we can convince companies, just imagine, the first half an hour before we start working, we all meditate. Imagine what the company will do. Imagine what the company will do. And right now, I'm very excited, blowing my mind. What it will do to the productivity of the company, guys. Imagine. And imagine the next thing is I'm really thinking to myself, oh my God, wait a moment, just a second. The whole company is meditating. It's not just the person meditating. The integration that will come out of it, the peacefulness that will come out of it. Finding silence in the noise that the world is today in. Oh my God, the power that it will create. So doing is important, but it's again, you're coming from the head. If you can start from the heart, doing from the heart is so much more powerful. And I thank you, Daaji. That's what I just learned something. I want to really emphasize that we all should look.
well, I would reiterate the thing. Shiv was mentioning about politicians, P, capital P politics, and politics with a small letter, P. Why are these politicians so infamous? They are almost compared to a gangster. And in some situations, they are worse than gangsters. How to sensitize their heart? How to make them convince? I think instead of wasting our time with them, create a new generations of politicians with capital P. One village at a time, one district at a time, one country at a time. And see the difference it can make. Not just politicians, but teachers. See, these days when we see the lifestyle of everyone without an exception, all are busy. Children suffer. Who is going to inculcate this knowledge of becoming noble citizens, divine citizens? Parents have no time. Grandparents rarely exist in their life. Grandparents are the one you can depend on to build a wisdom bridge from one generation to another generation. When that wisdom bridge is broken and parents are busy, we have to rely on teachers. Teachers, not just ordinary teachers, but awakened teachers, whose heart is open, who can sacrifice time for the welfare of a child. See? It's not just taking salary from a school. Teacher of a very high standard. See? So we can adopt a school at a time, see? One school at a time, and make it an example to the whole world. Look at this school and look at the people who are graduating from the school. It will take 2 decades perhaps for the world to witness the result arising out of such a school. So sensitizing and preparing high-grade teachers. So in order to have that also, we launched a program. In India, there are a lot of colleges. We call them colleges for teachers, B.Ed and M.Ed, Bachelor of Education. They churn out this stuff. And in the final year, we enter. But now we have started entering into this B.Ed college right from the inception. The moment the student is entered, we teach them heartfulness way of practices. Move on. And we select about 30 teachers from them. We pay them salaries now and depute them and make them travel from district to district, visit individual schools, and teach how to relax. We teach children how to relax. And once we have started this program of relaxation, children's performance academically skyrocketed. Number two, their confidence level went up very high. And you have witnessed the program called Brighter Minds, right? See the amazing things they are able to do. This Brighter Mind program is out of the world program. It is something that you're logically, you will not believe that it is possible.
Agree.
Wonderful.
I'm a witness. I'm a witness.
Wonderful.
When I tell people that, they tell me that I'm a liar. It cannot happen. Impossible. It is true. It's magic.
It will happen.
Wonderful. I'd love to visit.
Beyond magic, beyond magic. So things like that we do. And children, their confidence level is amazing. It is so amazing. And I hope they continue with this level of development. See? And some schools are so happy to have us there. And this is all done through partial payment. Some are full-time teachers. Full-time means full-time employment. While some who are volunteers, as I said, we have 50,000 plus volunteers all across India. Overseas, it's also there. Some countries like Madagascar or Cameroon, and US, we are big way with Brighter Mind program. In Russia, we are big way with the Brighter Mind program. So wherever it is possible politically, because country has to also, be agreeing to have such programs in their schools.
Yes.
So it's doing very well, actually, very, very well. And so it's good to catch as early as possible the youth. Youth may be ready, but we also need to have teachers of a high standard.
Of course.
Absolutely.
Because parents, I don't know, they have no time. They have seen it everywhere.
Yeah, they're lost. Well, let's go to the next question here. I think it is Daaji, maybe we'll start with you. We said, when we speak about people that make a change through the heart, how do you How do you develop those people? How do you develop them? How do you develop those teachers? How do you develop those, we know what we want them, but how do we develop them?
It's a fundamental thing. See, when we read Gita, it's a holy scripture of Hindus. It's not only limited to Hindus, but if you read it, you will also, your mind will resonate with it. Your heart will resonate with the questions and answers. It's a dialogue between two individuals. One at this level, another is at the top level. See, there's a dialogue. The advice that is given by the person of a higher consciousness, Lord Krishna, tells the person of a lower consciousness, Arjuna, that you must arrive at a steadiness of mind. You must regulate your mind, make it steady. Now, when you look at the philosophy of Kabir, another 1400 or 1500 century mystic, he said you have to come at a state where you're able to merge with the ultimate, like a water drop falling in the ocean, becoming that. When you talk of Lord Jesus Christ, he talks of, be you like a little children if you want to enjoy the higher world. And so many of them, they all say you must arrive at this such a state of mind, or you must arrive at such a state of the heart. Some religion talks about renunciation, that, drop everything and renunciate things. No one talks about how to arrive at it. And the means, they're not practical in modern days. If you say renounce everything, you may renounce everything and you might pile yourself up in Himalayan cave. But there you'll be thinking of gold mines and diamond mines. It's of no use. So the fundamental change has to come from the heart. And there are yogic techniques which we use in Heartfulness way. First, to clean the heart. Once the heart is clean, more and more cleaning happens over a period of time, because you can never clean up somebody perfectly in one session. And it is not advisable either, because that perfect purity will not be tolerable. So we, little by little, we purify the system and elevate the person's consciousness. And person is able to make changes and adopt these changes as he goes along. Even if you tell your most dearest one, your child or your wife, they might listen to you, but they may not do it. Something that you advise, please do this. They might do it, but where is their heart? But if you can inspire them through your acts, and let us say you pray, and in your heart you create a condition in your child and say, may this child develop this such a state of mind or such interest in their heart. And after a month or say, you see the result that, oh, Papa, I love to meditate. You never talked about meditation, but you quietly worked on it. So the child is self-inspired. And this happened because you were doing some work at a spiritual level. So that's what we do. And all these volunteers that we have worldwide, their main job is this: spy work, secret work. Quietly they work at nights on people when they are sleeping. Right? Babuji always used to say that when people are sleeping, it's the best time for me to work, because there is no resistance. Whatever thoughts I put in that they should become honest, it takes time. But when they do become honest, it is irreversible. So this yogic process offered in the Heartfulness way I think it's more than magical, more than a magical thing. And then results are so superb. Those who stick for long enough a period, they will see the magical results. It's not just mind, because mindfulness has its own limitations. To become aware of your breath, to become aware of your thoughts, these are all upgrades. But to become aware of your own feelings and later on adjust your becoming to match those feelings. So it's always higher and higher and higher move. And that happens only when your heart is in place. Heartfulness way of practice is make sure that your heart is in place.
Am I hearing it something here? Am I hearing it that in the world we live in, by putting so much attention to the brain, into thinking, into knowledge, we don't hear the heart.
Mm.
And what we need to do is hear the heart. And I think what we do with the heartfulness meditation is to learn to listen. And we start listening one at a time. You don't hear it right away, because if you hear it right away, it will be an enormous noise. You start listening more and more and more and more, and finally you really hear it. Listening to the heart, because we listen to the brain. You know, the observer, what's called, whom are you looking at? They always look at the thought, you know, watch your thoughts and, you know, control your thoughts, watch your thoughts. Listen to your heart. Who are you listening to? You see, that's the difference. And I think we are not listening to the heart. We live in a world which we are so indoctrinated by television, by education, by expectations, that we don't hear the heart at all anymore. And this is one of the questions here that was posed. My fear, I want to repeat this, my biggest fear is that the future of mankind is Nazi Germany. Very brainy people, education all on the brain, they know everything, they're built, but no heart. That was Nazi Germany. Nazi Germany were very well educated people. They were ahead with everybody with the atomic bomb. Ahead of the Americans. Americans stole it. Education, literature, music, everything. What was missing? How could these highly educated people burn little children? Tell me, how can it be? They did not hear the heart. We need to teach people to hear the heart. But in order to listen to the heart, you have to stop listening to the brain. And this is so difficult. It is so difficult. But that, I think, is the message. That's what I hear from you. Until we have to develop it, it is not coming right away. Listening to the heart is a major, because the transition of listening to this to listening to this is not an easy transition. And that's what we need to do in the education. I think you're wonderful. I think if we can do it,
it can happen, it will happen. And once the children undergo these brighter mind programs, and when they're convinced that yes, whatever my heart says is right, they'll always follow the heart. They will go to the extent of denying their parents and say, parent, my papa or mommy, you are wrong. You see, they will have so much of courage. I think brighter mind program along with this heartfulness way, it's a win-win situation, and I think we should somehow stimulate this and spread it as best as we can. When we had a special order from one district, we trained more than 25,000 children in one district alone. And you see the result. I mean, the children are bubbling and smiling in small villages just because they are able to do things with blindfold. And the study that, I mean, the scores just skyrocketed, just simply skyrocketed.
It's wonderful. It's wonderful. No, I completely subscribe to what both of you are saying. In our education program, One is action and doing, and a two is really about starting to do practices like meditation, socio-economic, just self-understanding, sort of self-understanding kind of training for children in schools. We train the teachers to train other teachers, because it's very difficult to penetrate into schools around the world. Governments close off the schools and don't allow you to really enter. So it's very hard to get into these schools. So luckily, we've managed to do that, and we're creating quite a positive atmosphere amongst young people. But I completely agree with you. It's all about learning to listen. It's leading from inside. These are difficult things. I think the education system over the last 200 years, 300 years has been very focused on the external world. Science, technology, what are we doing in the external world? Not enough focus on the internal world. And I think that, if you look at our old ancient Gurukul system, it was an intimate system with 10 or 20 students, with a guru who was at a very high quality level, very respected. So I think teachers are very critical. We need to respect our teachers. So we have a teacher's prize in our foundation to honor great teachers. So we think teachers are critical. We think it's very important to bring back inner learning, and that through compassion, by doing things, by understanding the world around us, makes us more compassionate. That compassion touches our heart, and that starts to open up the heart. In terms of your concept on jobs, Daaji, what you said, it's a big concern for me as well. We need to create 1.3 million jobs a month in India. And how do we do that? And to me, it's all about entrepreneurship. You need to make young people believe that they can be entrepreneurs, or that they should be part of entrepreneurial activity. And the country that's most impressive that way is Israel. If you look at Israel and what they have done in terms of their GDP per capita on the planet, it's truly incredible. It's outstanding. It's a country of 8 million people, of whom, if you really break it apart, as someone taught me when I was in Israel not long ago, 2 million of those people are old and very young, so they're not contributing to the economic development. 2 million are studying all the time, religious texts and so on. 2 million are slightly outside the core group that's producing everything. So 2 million people in Israel have a GDP that's in the hundreds of billions of dollars. And if you look at that compared to India, you'll be like, why are they so much more productive? And it's about that entrepreneurial spirit and a system of education that is driving job creation in a certain way. And I think it's very impressive. So we've created this Entrepreneurship World Cup, where we believe that we want to teach everyone to be entrepreneurial. Last year, we had 103,000 applications. This year, we'll have probably 200,000 applications. And we're creating the resources, about $1 billion in-kind gifts to entrepreneurs to be able to do this globally. We were in 180 countries last year. This year, we'll be in all the countries, 193 countries or so. That's our target. But it's all about making people create jobs, not expecting governments to create jobs, but making us believe we can create jobs, and making us people empowered to believe they can create things. So I think for me, the key in life is the inner balance and the outer balance. How do you put that together? Because a pure inner balance, is a wonderful thing. But then what happens to this external world? A pure external world, and you look at the world we've created today, where most of the focus is on external world. So for me, it's all about balancing these two energies, and that the core of that is the education system, and the core of that, of course, is understanding oneself and having the compassion that comes from within oneself exhibit itself without all the layers we build on it as we get older, which are protecting our heart from really shining and showing itself. And therefore, I'm a meditator. I meditate every day. I've been meditating most of my life. And I think it's a very important practice. I think that the challenge is carrying that meditative experience with you all the time. I think that's not so easy to do. But I think it's very important. And you guided me on that when we spoke not so long ago. And I appreciate that. And I've been trying to carry that with me. And it's a beautiful thing to carry that through the day with you all the time and not looking at it as something disjointed, as something you do in the morning and evening, and the rest of the day you're kind of, bathing in the after effects. I think carrying it and making it present is very important. And so I very much appreciate and thank you for that.
I want to react on something that both of you are saying. I differentiate between two types of societies, those that are developing and those that are quite developed. The strategy should be totally different, because there is a strategy, what do you do in time of scarcity, which is different what do you do in time of abundance. If you continue with a strategy of scarcity in a situation of abundance, it becomes dysfunctional and destructive and actually dangerous. I think creating more jobs in a society which has so much already, more is not better. More jobs, more manufacturing, more to make the air dirty, more to make the earth dirty, more to make the water dirty. More is not more. There is something called in economic theory, economies of scale. There is also something called diseconomies of scale, because it is so big now, it is inefficient and it's troublesome. America is there, for instance. I say, I don't want to see more entrepreneurs. Actually, in 1969, I started the first program in the world to train people how to manage performing arts. It didn't exist. I was the first program in the world. I call them social entrepreneurs. Harvard is now finally, 30 years later, starting to talk about it. We need, in the countries that are already in abundance, we don't need more variations of bread. We don't need more I go to the supermarket and say, what do we need so much more and more and more and more? More. You have 3 cars, now you want 4 cars, 5 cars. How many more cars? The highways are blocked. Everything is blocked. We are destroying the environment by looking for more and more. I don't want more jobs. I would like to do job sharing. I would like people to work 3 days a week. In a country of developed already, I'm talking about developed countries, not, you don't want to do it in India when people are starving. I'm not talking about countries that need to get first, Maslow's hierarchy of needs, the first level of survival. That's different strategy. There we need economic entrepreneurs. But in the countries which are already developed, they say, don't want more development. More development is destruction. I consult to the country of Montenegro. I tell them, please, no more. Please, no more. You're destroying the beautiful coastline. You're destroying the beauty of this country. No more. Less. Better.
I think, just to add to that, I think, beautifully said, Dr. Adizes, Mahatma Gandhi said, God has given us enough for our needs, but not enough for our greed. So I think that's a beautiful thing. I completely agree with you. When I'm talking about entrepreneurship, I'm not talking about more economic entrepreneurship. I'm talking about a mindset of entrepreneurship, which is actually a mindset of abundance. And that applies for poor or rich or anyone. It's a mindset that we can solve problems, we can create teams, we can bring resources together to solve problems. So we have a social entrepreneurship effort. We very much believe in social entrepreneurship, idea entrepreneurship, economic entrepreneurship. We think jobs are important because they give self-respect to people. But of course, at the core of that is, Maslow's hierarchy of needs. You need to eat, people need to have food. So the communist dream failed, where, the government would give everyone something. That didn't seem to work particularly well. So I think, what is the model? The model, capitalism on its own, seems to have failed in some ways, because we have such an inequitable world with so many issues of climate change, etc. So I think, at least from our point of view, we believe that conscious capitalism, a capitalism of service, is what's needed, of some kind. And I think that is not about my country and your country. It's really about one human family, and looking at the world and saying, look, It's just not fair that 8% of the population has 83% of all the wealth in the world. So we need to find a way to fix these problems so that everyone has access to health, to education, to clean water, to all the other things that so many of us take for granted. So I think that's really what we mean when we say entrepreneurship. It's a mindset. It's a mindset of trying to solve problems.
Shiva, let me help you on that, not help, I mean, contribute to that. Everything is a system. The world is a system. A system is composed of subsystems. One of the subsystems of the world is called humanity, but there are other subsystems, animals, vegetation, air, water, they're everything subsystems. When one subsystem exploits the other subsystems for its own self-benefits, it causes disintegration. That's called cancer. Cancer does not serve. Cancer takes. I believe humanity today is cancerous to the system called the world. We are taking. We are not integrating. We are taking from the air. We are taking from the water. We are taking from the soil. We're taking from the forest. We're taking from nature more and more and more and more, and destroying the world we live in. The mindset is, I'm part of a system. How do I contribute to the system in a symbiotic relationship? I contribute and I take, but I don't only take. Humanity is cancerous to society. No society, to the world. The way we are thinking is cancerous. We have to change that. We are part of a totality, and as a part of a totality, how do we contribute to the totality and benefit from it? Symbiotic relationship. It's not symbiotic. All we are doing is building and building and building and building in a way that disintegrates what we are living on. We are cutting the tree, what's called the tree on which we are sitting. We are cutting it. And look at what's happening. Cancer is mushrooming. Depression is mushrooming. Mental health is problems. Why is it all happening? Because we are falling apart, my friends. The world is falling apart. And why? Because we are cancerous. As a society, we are cancerous. The economic activity exclusively is cancerous. I think we are coming to an end, but I would like to ask Daaji, would you lead us through a meditation so we can close our session?
Surely, I would love to. So we'll begin the meditation. Okay. But my final words, so that we remember and share this, since Shiv is really busy with a lot of youth activities. Something I like to share, which is so profound to me, and I touched my heart so much. And I share it with a lot of people who are working with the youth. One day I had the opportunity of inaugurating a meditation hall in someone's house. He's a very wealthy person in one small city in Maharashtra. And he wanted to offer meditation place in his house. So he created a basement, and the entire full basement was dedicated for meditation activities. So people could go to his home and meditate. So housewife said, Kamlesh bhai, would you cut the ribbon? I said, I would love to. So we reached out to their place. I was trying to cut the ribbon. I couldn't cut the ribbon. You know why? The scissor was blunt. So I had to try really, So after that, I conducted meditation. But during meditation, some thoughts arose that why I was not able to cut, because it was blunt. Why did it become blunt? Because it was overused. Anything that we overuse becomes blunt. Now we have many things, pain part of our life and pleasure part of our life. We overuse the pleasure part of our existence. So it becomes blunt. So it requires more and more stimulation because it is blunt. Sensitivity is gone from pleasure part of our life. Like a drug addict. Today he will take one dose. After a month, he will eat 5 times that dose to make the same dopamine in his head. Pain part of the scissor remains very sharp. Pain part of our life remains very sharp because we never touch it. We avoid that, avoid using the pain part of the scissor. So even a little bit of inconvenience looks so big. That's all I wanted to share. I think you can figure out the rest.
Wonderful.
So let's meditate.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, gentlemen. That was absolutely, absolutely incredible. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
So please stay tuned for a minute more as we provide you with some useful information of how to connect with Heartful and Adizes. So connecting deeply with Heartfulness, there's a Hearts app, which is on iOS and Android, and you can download it. It's free, where you can connect with any trainer worldwide. There's a lovely magazine which you can subscribe to online, or you can get the print copy as and when the print copies start getting delivered with the crisis getting over, or you can go through the master classes. And all of this is available on heartfulness.org. To connect deeply with Adizes, I invite you to just watch this video, after which we close the session. Thank you, everybody. Good day and good night.
Stay connected with Heartful Adizes at adizes.com/heartfulness to continue learning from the Master of Management and the Master of Life. You will find access to past sessions with Dr. Ichak Adizes and Daaji. Take in our micro practices to help manage stress, anxiety, and fearfulness. Ask a question directly to a guru or download our free resources. We're always keeping you connected to the heart at Heartful Adizes and the Adizes Institute.